to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky. And in Maryland, the land of pleasant living, home of the Baltimore Orioles fan, longtime friend, esteemed colleague, John Webster. John, how you doing?
Gary, man, I'm doing great. Another big week in sports. A lot of good things happened. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to sit and talk to you about it. But first, unfortunately, we have to open the show with condolences. Condolences to the family of the coach, Butch McAdams. As you know, we had Coach McAdams on our show last year. Wonderful man, great guy. I put him at the top of knowing sports. Definitely, absolutely one of the best with basketball in the DMV. But above all else,
No doubt
was
about it.
even a was even a better person. And our condolences go out to his family and friends. And rest in peace, my good friend.
Indeed, John. You know, I guess anybody that follows basketball, in any city, has that one guy who is just an encyclopedia of knowledge and, a go-to source for just about anything and anybody can fill you on the history. And, and Butch was obviously that guy. And I think when we talked earlier, I was thinking about him and Sunny Hill. And no matter where Sunny Hill was on the East Coast, um, you could ask him about any city, DC, Philadelphia, New York. He could tell you something. He could tell you about Atlanta. He could tell you about Miami. And Butch was pretty much the same way. I mean, it's like 1, 2, and honestly, I still haven't gotten my mind around it because he's one of those guys that I always thought was gonna always be around, and it's just hard to really believe that that voice has been silenced. I mean, from what I could tell, he was still active up until his passing, and that just shows how devoted he was to it. That he loved what he did and did what he loved, and he will be
Absolutely, man.
missed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, John, let's see, where do we start today?
Well, I tell you what, Gary, we're gonna flip it. We're gonna talk about the NHL finals. And
Okay.
I want you to tell us all about how the Florida Panthers pulled this series out after almost having a tumultuous
Yeah.
meltdown.
I mean, John, I think when we talked and they were up 3-0 and thinking it's like, they were going to close it out in Edmonton the way that they had been playing. They had shut down a very potent Oilers offense, even though Connor and really had stifled Connor McDavid, who is the best player in hockey right now. No offense to our own Alex Ovechkin, but at that point, I just thought the Panthers were on a mission, and just like that, the switch comes on. Edmonton turns it on. They outscored them something like 18-5 over the next 3 games, and even the series and bring it back to South Florida. And John, I'll tell you, entering Game 7, I was really nervous about Florida just becoming the second NHL team to lose the Stanley Cup Series after being up 3-0, and they were going to be the second in addition to the 1942 Detroit Red Wings. But all those fears that I had changed in really one sequence. Of course, they got the first goal at the end of a power play that they didn't convert, but they get that first goal. Edmonton answers, and basically the Panthers went into shutdown mode. I mean, they had one of the most stingy defenses, and Sergey, the goalie, was was, he stood on his head. And
Mhm.
I think I'm trying to remember when the Capitals won the Stanley Cup. Do you remember that save that was made where you had like this much space? It's like the puck was on his stick, and
Mhm.
it was the stick was resting on top of the puck, and it was that close to getting into the goal, and he turned it aside, and it was probably the series saving goal. And
Yeah.
the Caps won in 5 games. um that it was like almost that same minute. And it's like they were attacking the net. The deep a defenseman, trying to say this, came over and just like slapped it away when it's like maybe inches from crossing the line.
Mhm.
And I remember watching that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's just a heck of a save. And I thought it's going to be one of those kind of bang bang plays where it could really turn the game. And John, 30 seconds later, they get the go ahead goal and made it stand. And I'm just thinking, how many times have we seen a bang bang play in any sport turn into a momentum shifter?
Yeah.
And
You're right.
that was it for the Florida Panthers. And I think that was the one. I thought that they could add on another goal, but I think they also sensed that Edmonton was kind of gassed. Edmonton gave it a go for like those last 25 to 30 minutes. I want to say from when they got that go ahead goal, but Monday night was a perfect example of in hockey how defense wins championships. And congratulations to the Panthers after two other tries where they clearly lost to better teams. That this time they proved that they were the best team. I think it was their turn, and after what they learned last year in losing to Las Vegas, in terms of defense and really just trying to generate offense when they needed it, it was one where they just answered the call. And we're talking about them as Stanley Cup champions as opposed to Stanley Cup runners up. And I'll say, as someone who lived in Florida at the time they entered the league and went to the Stanley Cup final in their third year, and I'll just explain one other thing about all those rubber rats that you saw on the ice at the end. Um, that's kind of a ritual that started down there. You've heard of a hat trick. Well, when they win a game, they call that the rat trick. And I tell you, I'd say for 3 games, I thought these past 3 games, I thought that they had been, outmastered by the Oilers. But when they won that game, and I was thinking, boy, that ice is just going to be flooded with rubber rats, and they won. Congratulations to them. And John, I'll say this: of all the playoffs now, we had an exciting Super Bowl. We had a pretty thrilling NBA Finals, I would say, in terms, we both were rooting for the Boston Celtics. But John, playoff hockey, there's no match for that in terms of intensity because you just don't know. Every possession is important, and you just know, yeah, any old bounce can really turn into a decisive goal, and that's what happened with Florida. He didn't have much space on that break, and he shoots it from the point, and that's one that to get that kind of angle from there, you had to really find, like, say, a hole that big, and or excuse me, get it through a hole that small, and he got it. And I just love how hockey is at that point. So congratulations to the Florida Panthers, and we can look ahead to next year and see whether they can repeat, whether Alex Ovechkin gets closer to Wayne Gretzky, and maybe whether the Capitals can be competitive again. I mean, it's like they're an old team; they're going to have to rebuild, and we just have to see who's ready to take that mantle from the Florida Panthers now that they are finally, and Paul Maurice, their coach, finally atop the hockey world.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yep.
What is your thoughts on Connor McDavid getting the Conn Smythe Award, which is the most valuable player award that was given out for the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yeah, I was thinking about whether whether the goalie Barbakoff or Connor McDavid should get it. Um, I would say he was definitely the X factor throughout these playoffs, and it is kind of weird. Of course, he didn't come out to get the trophy, because he wanted some other hardware. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the choice, as odd as it might seem, he was definitely the most dominant player in these playoffs. And you look at the fact that he had like back-to-back 4-point games and
Mm-hmm.
when they as they even the series. That's very, very hard to do, and that included several goals, and he was clearly the best player on the ice. He helped get them there to begin with, especially in the postseason. So I thought it was probably the right choice, even though he was with the losing team. The
Okay.
sad part is it's kind of like almost like the Jerry West Award right now, that he's the best player on the floor in 1969, but the Lakers didn't win, and it's a very small consolation, for him and for Edmonton when you lose the series like that. But I thought really it was the right choice, because it would have been easy to give it to Florida's goalie, but he he lost 3 games. He lost three
Mm-hmm.
straight games, and he gave up 18 goals essentially. So it's kind of hard to give it to him just because he stood on his head in Game 7.
Cool. I totally get it. Thanks, Gary, on that. Now let's move into the NBA. Talk about a team that wishes they could win another championship. The Los Angeles Lakers.
Easy,
Eh, eh,
easy.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean that to come out the way it did. Hopefully I didn't offend anyone. But they have a new coach now, JJ Redick. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's who they wanted. His name was the first one out there. They entertained Dan Hurley, but he decided to stay at UConn after consecutive NCAA titles, and I thought he was going to do that. John, I always think it's a curious case when you pull a guy right out of the booth who has no coaching experience. I mean, it's one thing to be an observer, but it's another thing to be on the sideline of one of the most glorious NBA franchises there in a hot media market where not just because it's Hollywood, but because the lights are on you. And I still look at that as a curious choice. But John, I'll just say we know we know LeBron probably had some kind of say, despite all the public declarations that it was a management decision. We'll just have to see. I'll just say that the Lakers, they're in a very tough position in terms of you know they have to win championships, and they have to fill seats like just about every other team in the league. But I just thought maybe they went too much with a sexy choice that had a name out there, as opposed to maybe a coach who could really get them back to where they needed to be. I didn't really have a problem with Darvin Ham as coach, but you just know that a head had to roll when they got knocked out, and unfortunately, it was his. He was a competent coach. We'll see with JJ Redick, but again, I think that you went with sexy as opposed to sensible.
Well, I think you make very valid points. I think they wanted to really get Hurley. I think that was their first, that was the big fish they wanted. You see, with the Lakers, they have to win, but in my opinion, they also have to be sexy with the win. And they went swinging for the fences for Hurley, which I give him credit for. All respect in the world. You went swinging for the fences to get him. You weren't able to complete that, so you had to do something else. As much as I think Kenny Atkinson is a solid coach, and a couple others who were assistant coaches. Barreo, I think, was another one.
Mhm.
That's not what was going to do it for right now for the Lakers. As coaches, will those two possibly be ahead of JJ Redick? Only time will tell. But right now, the Lakers had to do something to draw the interest to make sure they keep their fan base in tune with what they're doing. And I think that's what they did. And we'll see what's going to happen. There are other coaches, there are assistant coaches who have more experience, have been in the grinder a little bit more, but we'll see what happens with JJ Redick. Wish him the best. Hope it works out. But I'll tell you this, it's no easy job. And all of us are always undefeated when we're calling a game from the sideline. We're always undefeated because
Yeah.
you get to second guess. Now he will be second guessed. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's with the Lakers, and to a different extent, I remember the kind of the same thing with the Golden State Warriors. Remember when we thought Steve Kerr was kind of an odd choice, and and for that matter, even Eric Spoelstra down in Miami, that was a curious choice. It was a guy that you really hadn't heard of. But I'll say this, in the case of Steve Kerr, for his inexperience, it's like he really, obviously, he turned that team into a dynasty, having been a player and having been, I'd say, close enough that he could step into something like that. I'll give him credit for building that team his way. Remember, Mark Jackson, former broadcaster. I mean, he had been a coach, but he was a broadcaster at one point as well. That before he got that job, but again, he built it into something, and of course, clashes with management led to his ouster, and that's when they bring in Steve Kerr, and I remember back then we said who, and then or why rather, but again, he built that team in his own image, even with a really good nucleus, to start with, but he added to it. He took it to another level. I guess that's a better way to describe it. We'll just have to see with JJ Redick. Maybe there's something there that we just weren't aware of with him that that will show with LeBron and the Lakers.
We'll see, man. We will see, Gary. It will be very, very interesting. I tell you, I'll say this before you move on to baseball. He has a 4-year contract. You need to give him 3 years at
Yeah,
least. Don't turn around and fire him after 2 and you're starting the whole process over again. And in my opinion, if you fire him after 1 year, 2 years, to hire him was totally a waste.
yeah, yeah.
And
And,
that's not me saying I think he should have got the job or I think he should not have got the job. What I am saying is since he is in the job, you got to give him the chance to be successful.
yeah. John, as we discuss JJ Redick's credentials, I think the biggest thing we need to understand about the Lakers and really address the biggest question is personnel. It's easy to blame Darvin Ham for their failures, but look at that roster, John. I mean, that is an old roster. And you have to decide in bringing in JJ Redick, do you bring in young talent that you can build around somebody? You have to ask yourself, is LeBron going to be there? Is he going to become a free agent, when that deadline comes? That's the whole thing. It's like it's easy to blame the coach, but you have to look at how this team is being put together, in my opinion, in LeBron's image and LeBron's, vision. That's kind of
Be
dangerous.
easy over there, big guy. Be easy over there, big guy.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that he has some influence on some of the guys he plays with. But you look at the makeup of that roster; it's an old team, and you don't know who you can depend on from from game to game because of their age, because of a history of injuries, even with, excuse me, with some of the younger guys. And that's what I think the Lakers really need to look at after hiring the coach that they want. How do we remake this roster and make it younger and make it a roster that you can, can build around and get back to that level with or without LeBron?
Totally agree. But
Yeah.
they're going to
But
do
John, we have
something.
the NBA draft coming up later on. Um, I don't know. Does anybody really jump out at you in this draft? I mean, I can look at the Kentucky guys that I covered, Reed Shepard and Rob Dillingham. Shepard is projected as number two. Both of them kind of. Yeah, well, I'll say among the lottery picks that Shepard has a better chance of Dillingham, but Dillingham might creep in there, and I don't think he'll go any lower than maybe 14th or 15th.
Yeah, those two are good. The kid from UConn, the center, the aircraft carrier, what's his name? Signon.
Yeah,
He's possible. The two kids from France, they're projecting them to go 1 and 2. So that means Washington Wizards will have the chance to get one of them. Atlanta's probably going to get the other one. You got a possibility of some trades happening. You already had one trade with the Knicks making a trade to get Mikal Bridges. They gave up a bunch of picks to the Nets. And then there's also this rumor going around. Don't know how accurate it is. We'll have to see tonight that Kevin Durant may be traded. So have to see. This is going to be an interesting year. In my opinion, not to put these kids down, they're very good kids. I'll say I don't see anybody in there who's really going to be able to step in and be a difference maker this year. They're going to be good players, but I don't know if they can be a difference maker and have their team go to the championship. Um, you got a wild card sitting there because people are wondering, like with Zach Edey, what will happen with him being in, will he even get drafted? Or if he does, where does he go and how effective will he be? So we'll see. I don't see this draft as one with a lot of components of players who are going to be able to step in and immediately make a team better. I think you have some kids, as you said, like Dillingham and Signon and a couple others who
Donovan Clingan.
yeah,
Clingan.
clinging. What do I call him? Signon, clinging. There you go. Thank you. I'm thinking about
Yeah,
Signa.
yeah. Thank you.
I'm thinking about my benefit package. But
Yeah.
no, clinging, yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. The one guy, and I was looking at a mock draft that I feel like could really be a wild card is Dalton Connect from Tennessee, because we've had several chances to watch him
Mhm.
in the tournament. I mean, he's a guy that I've seen for several years at Tennessee, and the guy can shoot. The guy he can rebound. He can defend, and most of all, he can irritate. I think he's one of those players that, yeah, I think if he lands with the right team, right now, the last draft I saw, mock draft, had him going number 6 to Charlotte. But
Mhm.
he's a guy that I feel like, he might not change your franchise, but he's a
Mhm.
guy that can do a lot of things, and he can be a very good complementary player and eventually emerge into somebody that can become a star. Just I think he's got that potential at 6'5". Again, he's that tweener, as we always
Mhm.
like to say. But the fastest that he brings on both ends of the floor, I think, make him a very, very interesting pick. And the fact that he's in the lottery, projected to be in the lottery, says something about his value.
Sure. The Neck had a good year this past season in Tennessee. He can do it inside and outside. I think also with Connect, it's going to come down to being with the right team. He needs to be in the right system. So
Yeah,
we go from there.
yeah. But John, we have baseball, and I guess right now I have to talk you off the ledge with your Baltimore Orioles, who are going through a losing streak. Luckily, it's in late June as opposed to late September. But you know, I'll say it like this: what they've lost, what, five in a row, six in a row,
Five in a row.
five in a row. I would say don't worry about it right now. Yeah, they have some things that they've got to smooth out, that they have to take care of with the offense and with, obviously, with the pitching too. But you know, it's just such a long season, John, that I think, what, 2 weeks ago we talked about, as long as they're within maybe two and a half, three games of the Yankees, that's a good place, because one good hot streak by the Orioles, one good losing streak by the Yankees can change everything. And I still believe that, even with their losing streak, because they're only two and a half back now, even with all that.
Right. Yankees lost last night again. Um, I guess in my mind with the Orioles, Gary, is what I've been talking about is pitching.
Mm.
Is inconsistency there? And now you're beginning to ask some of the pitchers to do some things that were not done before. And one of the things that we're looking at is the fact that Cole Irvins, for example, last night, Cole Irvins, in the best scenario with the Orioles, when everybody was there, was the sixth pitcher. Sixth.
Mm-hmm.
And he was finding a great deal of success. And he was doing very well. Now that the Orioles have lost three starters to elbow injuries, three: Kyle Bradish, Tyler Wells, John Means, for a second time going under the knife for Tommy John surgery. It's changed the thought process on Cole Irvins from being a luxury to being a necessity. Last night when he pitched, I think he pitched with the mindset of necessity, and he did not have a good outing. He struggled. And I think some of it is because of the pressure that's coming now, because the Orioles now have Grayson Rodriguez and they have Corbin Burns. Your 3, 4, and 5 right now is Cade Povich, who just came up from Rochester, Albert Suarez, and Cole Irvins. Those are your 5 pitchers. And Dean Kramer had a terrible outing in his minor league stint earlier this week. Gave up 6 runs. He went 2/3 of an inning, Gary. Let me say that again. 2/3 of an inning Dean Kramer pitched in a minor league game before they had to snatch him. So he has to do another rehab
That had to
assignment.
hurt. That had to hurt, seeing that.
Terribly, terribly. Um, I'm sitting there listening to that game on my phone, how I can pull it up on the phone and watch it. And here's one rocket shot after another rocket shot after another rocket shot all over the field. I'm like, he's not coming up to Baltimore this week. It's going to be, he won't even be up there until July at the best.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then a key high leverage reliever, Danny Kaloum, he's out until September. That hurts, So you're looking at situations where the pitching is just not where it needs to be. You got like Yanir Cano. He is a setup man. He is a setup. He's not a closer, and he's not good at coming in when it's just crazy and the bases are just looking ugly with people all over him. Now you got him in a rough situation. And Kim Brell is not a closer anymore. I think Kim Brell is a 7th inning pitcher. Back to what I'm saying. You don't have a closer.
Mm-hmm.
I think this Oriole team, I would be happy if they get the American League East. I'm not throwing in the towel at all, but I think more realistic right now is a wild card because it's going to take them a while to get everything figured out with what they need to do. And let me also say this. Somebody was asking me today, do I want to give a lot of stuff away to get something? I'm not trying to mortgage the future for this season. Now, if I can find a pitcher and I can give a couple players away, because the Orioles have a lot of good players, I'm open to that. But I'm not open to giving everything away and not having anything for the future.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, John. Again, you're in a better position to know that that than I am here. But from what I've seen and what I've read, yeah, everything you said makes perfect sense. Hey, before we go, let's I'll just say if you had a chance to watch the game at Rickwood Field in Birmingham between the Cardinals and the Giants, and a tribute to one great Willie Mays. There was so much about that game that it was less about what was on the field. Although I loved watching those old throwback uniforms that they were playing in. Yeah, I'll give
Absolutely.
Major League Baseball credit for figuring out another way to market stuff and sell uniforms, and it was just absolutely great, to see those throwbacks and stuff, and to see that old stadium still being serviceable.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
aside from a glowing, warm tribute to probably the greatest player that I've ever seen, and I was lucky enough to see him and Hank Aaron when the All Star game came through. But what Reggie Jackson said, and everybody's still talking about, his experiences, which were really, really heartfelt about being in the minor leagues in Birmingham. That's the thing that was just so riveting about that game and the history, and thinking about how far the game has come, how far Black players in this game have come, even though our numbers are not what they were, say maybe 15, 20, 20 years ago, and definitely, during Willie Mays's and Hank Aaron's time. But everything that Reggie said, spoke volumes about our country, about baseball, and about the Black players and their influence and growth in baseball, and the need to get back to that.
Agreed. Reggie Jackson made some very poignant statements. And as much as you want to celebrate, and it was a celebration, you also cannot forget some of the struggles that our ancestors and relatives and everybody went through to get through the Negro Leagues and to be a part of the Negro Leagues. You can't forget that. And Reggie Jackson brings up good points about, let me rephrase that, not good points. He brings up points because nothing was good about facing racism. That's terrible. That's unfortunate. And it's not right. But at the same time, what Reggie Jackson did is make sure of through this celebration, good to be at Rickwood Field, but don't forget about some of the things that happened. We want to move forward, but you move forward with the understanding of what happened before. And that's what Reggie did. And I don't think it dimmed the lights on the program. I think it made them shine brighter and made people understand even more the struggles, the challenges, the crisis, and the situations all of these individuals in the Negro Leagues faced. The bravery they had to have in order to continue to be successful, the threats they came across, those were all real. And Reggie Jackson made sure you did not forget it, nor should we.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Well, I think that wraps it up for us, folks. There's plenty of sports to watch. We've got Olympic trials going on in just about every sport now, and track and field has been riveting for me. Um, we say it every week. Watch sports, watch us on YouTube, Facebook. We'll email you a link. John, take us home.
Hey, another great week in sports. Watch some more sports this week. Watch some soccer. watch some WNBA, watch some track and field, watch some rugby. Doesn't matter. Watch some sports and come back and see us next week. Take care.